I guess for these last 2 days, instead of starting something totally new, we thought it would be best to go back and review solving equations. It's an important idea for when you move on to Algebra 1 next year. So we wanted to take some time, go over some review questions today, give you a couple questions for homework, and then give you a solving equation test tomorrow. So that's how we're going to end everything up here. So, review solving equations. We have inverse operations are opposite operations that undo each other. So, addition and subtraction are inverse operations, multiplication and division are inverse operations. We're going to start off here really focusing on those inverse operations by going through the 4 different one-step equations that you might see. So, in our first one, we have x plus 24 equals negative 52. So, if you recall, we always started by drawing our line down, so that we always remember what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So if I'm adding 24, then the inverse of that would be to subtract 24 from both sides. So x equals negative 52 minus 24. Keep in mind they're both a negative there. So that would give us a negative 76. And then remember, you can always check your work by substituting back in. So if I substitute my value for x, so negative 76 plus 24 equals negative 52. Well, if I go and I actually check that, negative 76 plus 24 does in fact equal negative 52. So negative 52 equals negative 52. Now, I'm not going to take the time to check all of these problems. Just wanted to remind you that's how we would do it. I will check some of them as we go through. Okay, if we look at our next one, c minus 13 equals 64. Again, we're going to drop that line down. The inverse of subtracting 13 would be to add 13. So c equals 64 plus 13 would give us 77. And I know that 77 minus 13, if I do a quick mental check here, would give me 64. Okay, so there's your first two one-step equations with adding and subtracting. So then from there, we're going to look at our other two options for one steps. So we have negative 4.2 equals negative 7m. So I drop that line down. So negative 7m, remember if they're right next to each other, that means they're being multiplied. So to do my inverse, I'm going to divide by negative 7 on both sides. So negative 4.2 divided by negative 7. Well, I know that 42 divided by 7 is 6. Two negatives make a positive. So if I would get 0.6 equals m. So 0.6 equals m. Okay, and our last one step, we have negative 3/4 k equals 2/3. Switch my color up again. When I see that fraction being multiplied, remember we want to think about multiplying by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of negative 3/4 would be negative 4/3. Remember, we flip it, we keep the sign, and we have to do that on both sides. So 2/3 times negative 4/3. So k, so negative 4/3 times negative 3/4 is 1, so we end up with just k. And then 2/3 times negative 4/3, well, I multiply straight across. 2 times negative 4 gives me negative 8. 3 times 3 gives me 9, so k equals negative 8/9. Remember, we can substitute that back in. Negative 4/3, or negative 3/4 times negative 8 over 9 would in fact give us 2/3. So that did check out. We did a quick mental check there. Okay, so there's your 4 one-step equations. Hopefully you guys remember how to do them. So if we move on to our 2-step equations. So 2 steps is just that. We're going to start by dropping that line down just like we always do. And we're going to work backwards. So if I find my variable, I want to work away from it. So the first thing we're going to do here, I see I'm subtracting 12. So I would want to add 12 to both sides. So 1/5 p equals 20 plus 12 gives me 32. Now 1/5 p, it's just like the one step we did on the last page. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/5 would be 5/1, which is the same as just 5. So 5 times 1/5 leaves me with just p equals, and then 32 times 5 gives me 160. And then just to do a quick check here, because we haven't done one in a couple problems, if I substitute that in there, so 1/5 times 160 minus 12 hopefully equals 20. So 160 times 1/5 would give me 32 minus 12 equals 20. And 32 minus 12 is in fact 20. So it does check out. Okay, so now solving multi-step equations and checking. First thing we want to do is check, is there something I can simplify on each side? So taking a look at my first equation, 4 minus 9c plus 3c equals 58. I see I have two variables on the same side. It's important that they're on the same side. I can simplify that. So negative 9c plus 3c would give me negative 6c. So 4 minus 6c equals 58. Now it becomes a two-step problem. So working away from my variable, I see I have a 4 out there, same thing as a positive 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So that's gone. So the negative 6c equals 54. Notice that 6c stayed negative since it was minus 6c. So now we're going to divide by negative 6. It's now a one-step problem. So c equals negative 9. And you could substitute that back into the beginning and find out that it does check out. It does equal 58. Okay, take a look at our next multi-step. 33 equals 7 times 2p minus 1 minus 2. So I see a number outside of parentheses. That tells me the first thing I have to do as far as simplifying is distribute. So 33 equals, so 7 times 2p gives us 14p. Minus 7 times 1 is 7, so minus 7 minus 2. I can still simplify further. I see I have two constants here. So 33 equals 14p. Now negative 7 minus 2 would give us a negative 9, so minus 9. Double check, 33 equals 14 minus 9. There's no more simplifying I can do. So now we hop into solving. Drop my line down. Again, working away from the variable. So I see I have a minus 9, so we're going to add 9. Add 9. So that gives us 42 equals 14p. Divide by 14. So we get p equals 3 or 3 equals p. Same thing either direction. And if we substituted that back in there, it would give us 33. So if we did 2 times 3 is 6, minus 1 is 5, times 7 is 35, minus 2 gives us our 33. Okay, so quick mental check. It did check out. Alright, almost done here. Solving equations with variables on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. So we need to get our variables on one side and our constants on the other. It doesn't matter which direction you go here. You can pick variables to the left, constants to the right, or variables to the right, constants to the left. We just need to kind of pick a direction and go. So I'm going to start by subtracting x from both sides. Keep in mind, subtracting x is the same as subtracting 1x. So x minus x is gone. We're left with just 8 on the right side. 3x minus x leaves us with 2x plus 10. Okay, so I chose to take my variables to the left, which means my constants have to go to the right. Which means I have to subtract 10 from both sides. So that leaves us with 2x equals 8 minus 10 is negative 2. It's now just a quick one-step equation. Divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals negative 1. Okay, so we haven't done a check in a little while where we actually wrote it out, so we'll go ahead and do it on this problem here, especially since there's variables on both sides. So if I substitute in, remember you have to substitute into every single x that you see, not just the first one. So that gives us 3 times negative 1 plus 10 equals negative 1 plus 8. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3 plus 10 equals negative 1 plus 8. Negative 3 plus 10, same thing as 10 minus 3, would give us 7 equals negative 1 plus 8. Again, same thing as 8 minus 1, which also gives us 7. So this looked like a slightly complicated problem at the beginning, but it actually turns out to not be too bad. Okay, one last thing. Going over some word problems. So Dion wants to go on a camping trip with his hiking club. The trip costs $185.75. He paid a deposit of $45.75 and will save an additional $17.50 per week to pay for the trip. Solve an equation. We're going to have to figure out what it is first to find the number of weeks Dion will need to save money for the trip. Okay, so going through here, we know the trip costs $185.75. We know he already paid a deposit of $45.75, and he's going to save $17.50 per week. So our total is always the piece that's by itself. It's what it's equal to. So we know that in all, he needs $185.75. So that has to equal something. Okay, so he already paid a deposit. So he's already paid $45.75. So we're going to bring that in here. Plus this $17.50 per week. We know that per means to multiply. So plus $17.50 W, where W equals the number of weeks. Okay, so there's our equation. 185.75 equals 45.75 plus 17.50 W. Now, there may have been another option that you thought of. If you solve out what you were thinking and you end up with the same answer, then that does in fact mean you're correct. This is just the equation that I am going with. So we're going to go ahead and solve this. It's a two-stepper here, so I'm going to subtract 45.75 from both sides. So 185.75 minus 45.75 leaves me with 140 equals 17.50 W. And then I see they're being multiplied, so we divide both sides by 17.50. So if I do 140 divided by 17.50, that leaves me with 8. That's a pretty bad 8 there. Equals W. So Dion will save for 8 weeks. Alright guys, that is it. You are done. This was the last video lesson. You've got a homework assignment reviewing these kind of questions and then a test to follow up, and then that is it. We've made it to the end.